Hey, welcome. So today we are diving into a really fascinating ancient text, the Sutra of the Holy Dharma Seal. And, for a text that's so old, its goal is incredibly modern. It's all about finding mental clarity by tackling the one thing that gets in our way more than anything else, our own ego. And really, the entire teaching boils down to this one question. We all have an ego, right? That sense of I or me that creates pride and self-importance and just so much mental noise. The real question is, how do you actually deal with it? Well, this ancient text lays out a roadmap. So the sutra kicks off with the Buddha posing a challenge directly to his disciples. He just cuts right to the heart of the matter, identifying a problem that, let's be honest, anyone who's ever tried to find some inner peace has run into. That is incredibly direct. He's basically saying, look, you can't have it both ways. You can't hang on to your pride and ego, that feeling of being this solid, important self, and at the same time expect to reach a deep state of mental clarity. The two just don't go together. Trying to do both is, as he says, just plain impossible. Okay, so if the ego is the problem, what's the solution? The great thing about this sutra is that it doesn't just point out the obstacle, it actually gives us a practical ladder, a series of insights to climb towards that clarity. So let's break down how this ladder actually works. All right, so the very first step is all about observing the physical world. The idea is to look at everything around you, a tree, this building, your own body, and really see that it's all impermanent. Everything comes into being, sticks around for a bit, and then eventually fades away. This leads to the insight of emptiness, which, by the way, doesn't mean nothingness. It just means nothing has a fixed, permanent core. So after looking at the outer world, the focus turns inward to our senses. Now, the goal here isn't to stop seeing or hearing. That's not it at all. It's about releasing our attachment to those sensations. You know that constant mental chatter about what we're seeing or smelling? When we let that go, we reach a state the text calls no thought. It's not an empty mind, but a calm mind, one that isn't being jerked around by every little thing. Building on that inner calm, the third step goes even deeper. It's about tackling the core drivers of our actions, what are often called the three poisons. There's greed, that constant wanting of more. There's anger, the pushing away of what we don't like. And then there's ignorance, which is just a basic misunderstanding of how things really are. When you let go of these, you can reach a state of no desire, free from that endless push and pull. And you can see how this foundation is just brilliantly laid out. It's such a logical progression. You start outside yourself, observing the world to understand emptiness. Then you turn inward to your senses to find no thought. And finally, you go to the root of your motivations to achieve no desire. Seems like a totally complete practice, right? You'd think that would be the end of it. Well, here's the twist. The sutra makes this absolutely crucial point. Even after achieving all three of these profound states, the root problem, that deep-seated feeling of pride and self-importance, is still there. These steps are essential for sure. They create what the text calls a soft and gentle mind, but they haven't pulled out the final stubborn root of the ego. And this is where the teaching gets really interesting, because now that the mind is prepared, you're finally ready for the last and most important step, to look directly at that sense of I and figure out where on earth it actually comes from. So at this stage, you're literally supposed to sit down and ask yourself, really ask, this feeling of I and mine, where does it come from? And this isn't some abstract philosophical question. It's a personal investigation, a deep dive into your own mind. And when you really look, the answer starts to become clear. That feeling of a solid, independent I, well, it doesn't have a single source. It turns out it's just a temporary coming together of countless different causes and conditions. The original text uses this amazing term, yin-yang, or yin-yang. So let's break that down. Dependent origination is a huge concept in Buddhism. It basically means that nothing, and I mean nothing, exists all by itself. A tree isn't just a tree, right? It's the result of a seed, soil, water, sunlight, air. Take any of those away and you don't have a tree. Well, the sutra says the exact same logic applies to our sense of self. And this is the ultimate aha moment. If the I is just a product of all these shifting causes and conditions, our body, our thoughts, our memories, our environment, and all of those things are constantly changing, then the I we cling to so tightly has to be impermanent too. It doesn't have a solid, fixed root. It's much more like a wave in the ocean than a solid rock. Realizing this finally brings us full circle, right back to the title of the sutra. After all this, what is the Holy Dharma Seal anyway?
It's this direct understanding of reality that finally does the trick. It's what subjugates the ego, and the logic is actually pretty simple. How can you be prideful about a self when you see clearly that it's just a temporary collection of changing conditions? The very foundation for pride just dissolves.
So you see, the Holy Dharma Seal isn't some physical object or a secret password. It's the entire process we've just walked through. It's the whole journey from realizing emptiness to no thought to no desire, and finally culminating in this profound wisdom about the nature of the self. That whole path is the seal that purifies the mind. And the sutra really hammers this home at the end. It says this complete process, from the very first step to the final insight, is the whole teaching. It's a complete system for transforming the mind from a state of ego and agitation to one of incredible clarity and freedom. So we've walked this path to seeing the self not as a fixed thing, but as a process that's always in flux. Which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. If the self we're so invested in is always changing, is there anything about our experience that remains constant? Something powerful to reflect on. Thanks so much for joining me.